pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's join me for a moment of silence, please. All right, you can be seated. Thank you. First item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. I'll move it. Second. Any questions or concerns? All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion passes 5-0. Next up is the consent agenda. Items 2 through 6 constitute a consent agenda of routine action items to be considered by one motion. Items pass unanimously unless a separate vote is requested by a board member. Number 2 is approval of minutes of the February 18th, 2025 meeting. And then also the approval of the minutes from the February 13th, 2025 special meeting. Number 3 is approval of claims. Number 4 is from Board Administration Karen James, approval of a resolution for a tax suspension for SM. Number 5 from Human Resources, Melissa Thomas, approval of memorandum of personnel transactions and authorization to initiate the hiring process. Number 6 from Board Administration, Heather Van Sickle, it's approval of notice of property sale resolution for parcel ending in 9005, aka 3508 West 5th Street for Tuesday, March 11th at 4:35 p.m. And B is the approval of notice of property sale resolution for parcels ending in 9009, 9010, and 9011, aka 1813 South Olive Street, 1815 South Olive Street, and 1817 South Olive Street for Tuesday, March 11th at 4:37 p.m. And that's the end of the consent agenda. Any comments or questions or additions? Hearing none, I'll move it.
Second.
All right, motion by Bittinger, second by Dietrich. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Michelle, is there a ringing? I keep hearing a ringing. Do you guys hear a ringing out there? Is this sound okay? Okay. Maybe it's my ear. Yes, Melissa's saying it's my ear. It might be. It might be. It's my ears. All right. It's just me. It's not you. It's me. All right. All right. Well, let's begin tonight. On the agenda, as you can see, it's just budget review, finalizing the budget review discussions, and then receiving the budgets for fiscal year 26. Just as always, I just want to remind the public and our media that's here, we are looking to set the max tax levy. Once again, this is not the final tax levy or the final budget, so be very clear, as sometimes our great, wonderful citizens can get alarmed, but this is just the max tax levy hearings and receiving the budgets, and this is just if everything were to be put through, and we just said yes to everything, this is what the levies would be. And so once again, our goal as a board over many years has been to work towards a flat levy. My goal is to work towards a flat levy for fiscal year 26, and I think many of our board members wish that, but it's going to be hard with House File 718, and the restrictions to general basic and rural basic and some other just economy factors that we are feeling. And so I just want to remind everyone that we're going to do our best, but there will be cuts. Some CIP projects are not going to be funded. Some improvement requests are not going to be funded. And we know that Woodbury County has been faithful over the years to be wise with fiscal spending and doing their best to look at long-term planning. And so with that, we want, hope everyone knows that, we would love to give everyone their desire and fund everything, but we also want to be wise fiscal planning, and there's even more potential coming down from Des Moines of caps and limitations and stuff that this Board of Supervisors has already made our representatives known that we want to see home rule first and above all things and not having control from Des Moines. And so with that, I just want to give everybody that this is just receiving the max levy. So with that, let's jump into our discussion for tonight here. Number 1 is from Infrastructure Economic Development. And let's go ahead, Michelle, I'll turn it over and we'll begin the conversation.
Okay, so the first page of the backup material is going to show you the projected income and expense for the local option sales tax. You can see the estimated beginning fund, the beginning balance of this item would be $310,436. That's taken into account any approved items during fiscal year 25. I think we have a little error there under where it says fiscal year 24, it should say fiscal year 26. So as in the past, we receive requests from organizations, and the local option sales tax is to be used for economic development,
Correct, yeah.
basically. And we did receive requests from all of the items listed here, and they'll need to be approved individually. In the past, we've received requests from the Siouxland Initiative. That one, we did not have a request come through. We have Western Iowa Tourism, who has requested 500 in the past, and we received a request, but they've had an individual pass away, so the request was actually an invoice, so we've just asked for an official letter as they've sent in the past. Have we received one of those yet? So it's up to you to approve or deny. They have asked for 500. We just don't have the official letter that they've sent in the past due to somebody who has passed away in their organization there. So we can just go through these one by one.
Okay.
That if these were all approved, then the balance of unallocated funds for fiscal year '26 would be the highlighted of $711,560. In the past, we have used that to pay down our debt. So depending on how much you want remaining to approve throughout the fiscal year, you can decide upon an amount that you might want to pay off on the debt for that.
All right. Well,
Questions about that page? Okay, so the first is the event center, and this is an agreement that we are to pay 10 payments of $150,000 each. This is payment 8 of 10, so we'll have 2 more after this.
Yeah, this one's pretty self-explanatory. This is for the Seaboard Triumph Event Center down there that hosts a wide slew of events. And so, so fiscal year '25 would be the 9th payment.
Fiscal year '25 is the 7th payment. Fiscal year '26 will be the 8th payment.
Okay, all right. So yeah, we just have 2 more after that. So
Yeah.
I would move to receive.
Second.
all right, motion by Nelson, second by Dietrich. Any other discussion or comments? All right, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, so I have this a little out of order, but just for a historical reference of the actions, you can see on this 3rd page is the transfers that were made out of local option, and the little snippet screenshot at the bottom is going to show where those funds have went. So we gave $250,000 to debt service for fiscal year '25, 39 for the soil conservation, which we did have that as a prior agenda item, and it was recommended by our former county engineer not to use the local option sales tax for the soil conservation because he did not think that it really promoted economic development and such that loss should.
Okay. All right.
And then you've got a few pages. On page 5 is going to just list all of these items and the amounts that total up to $625,000. It's just a coincidence that it's the same amount as it was last year because the amounts are a little bit different within them.
So where did we move that soil conservation tax? Did we put that in general sup or
I have to look, but I think it was rural,
rural basic?
yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And there's a screenshot down below of what was approved last year during the
Yeah.
budget. Then we have some summary pages. So the next item is going to be the Western Iowa Tourism, and this is the one that we do not have the official letter. We did get a request in the form of an invoice, which is not the official request.
Is there anyone here to speak for that? I don't know if anybody normally comes to this for Western Iowa Tourism.
So I'm the liaison.
Right.
Well, I was. I think you maybe.
Who
Kent
do we-
now?
who do we- I think we
Um,
Kent, yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm not surprised that you said that someone passed away, because I'm trying to remember the gal's name that sent emails, but it'd been pretty quiet the last several months, and so I'm not surprised that we haven't really heard anything.
Shirley Phillips.
Yes, yep.
So I did speak with someone in the Economic Development Department last week, and they're still trying to sift through everything, and she did send me the invoice, and I did ask for the official letter, and I sent her a copy of what they sent us last year. I just haven't seen anything yet. I would say to go ahead and approve it, but I'll make sure I receive that, but they're still trying to work through everything, so.
I do know that they have started to offer tourism grants specifically for our area that are a lot more than $500, so I don't think it's probably a bad thing for the,
Right,
for the money, so.
sure. Okay,
I'd move to receive.
I'd second that. Motion by Nelson, second by Bittenger. Any other discussion, comments, questions? All right, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Motion passes 5-0. Before we go any further, Matthew, I have a question for you and for Mark. The Siouxland Initiative, I know it says the last couple of years is we've done 25,000. Is that something we reached out to them, or do they normally, Michelle, do they usually send over a request or a letter? Do we know? I don't know what's been,
Last
Heather,
year, we
you-
had a letter, and Heather has been monitoring, so she
Okay.
can fill you
I
in
know
more
2
on
years
that.
ago, I was meeting with Dennis one day, and that letter, they had sent a request, so that's what I remember.
Yeah, we always receive a request. It's usually signed by Chris McGowan, and
Okay.
we've reached out to him a few times and through emails, and I've tried calling, and
Okay.
we've just not received anything.
okay.
But yeah, it was always something that Dennis was, for. We did it every year,
Right,
so
right. It's a good organization.
yeah.
I
So
would
I'm
hate
not
not
really
to
sure.
support that.
But I've called a few times too.
Okay.
and
To my understanding, we usually receive a request. We
Right.
don't
Yeah.
just solicit
Correct.
to.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
no.
Okay. Do we, okay.
And I have not been contacted by
Okay.
the organization.
Okay, thank you,
I don't
Matthew.
either.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything, okay. All right, just want to make sure I don't want to overlook with that. Thank you, Heather, Karen. All right, go ahead, Michelle.
Okay, so the next item is the county fair, and they did supply their letter of request.
I know we have two gentlemen here, so come on forward, gentlemen, as always, and introduce yourself and welcome.
Hi there, Jason Ingram with Woodbury County Fair there in Mobile, Board President. We're gearing up for our 96th year this year. We were tied for second for number of 4-H participants in the state, with Washington County with 411 members. Polk County had 448. So we're happy to provide a place for them to show off their exhibits every year. Not only that, we had 387 open class exhibitors this year, and they had a total of 2,400 exhibits. Future plans are for our show ring replacement, and also for our pole buildings need restructured. They were all built in the early 70s, and they're all getting some bad posts. So that's our maintenance that we got going on there. So we appreciate your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It was great this summer. Me and Supervisor Nelson were out there on that super hot day, touring, riding around with you guys. So it was great to see the facilities and the future plans. And so it's a great fair to go to. So I've been supportive of this. Any further discussion or comments? Anything?
So one of the, down at the bottom here, they have, talk about their Pen of 3, which is a cattle show that they added. I would say, as the contest of showing cattle has gotten to be very expensive, very labor intensive. This was a project that was kind of more entry level, that more kids could participate at that are maybe at a financial disadvantage compared to other exhibitors. And as I said here, it has 13 entries, and they're projecting 25 for this next year. I know this year at the Cattlemen's Banquet, they needed feed bunks for each of the exhibitors, and so they were looking for 25 sponsors of feed bunks, and they actually, within, I think, one day, they had more sponsors than they needed feed bunks. So I think that people are definitely doing their part,
Right.
to contribute, and I think this is a very worthy cause. So thanks for what you guys do, too. So.
All right, with that, I'll move it.
Second?
Motion by Bittinger, second by Nelson. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Motion passes 5-0.
And the next item will be one that we have funded in the past, which will be the Joint County Simcoe membership dues. And the request is in the amount of $8,053.90.
Is there anyone here from Simcoe to speak at all? Okay. All right. Any questions or comments? It's pretty straightforward.
Yep. Is Dietrich, are you the liaison to that?
Yeah, I am, and I'm just, obviously getting my feet wet with everything. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on with Simcoe, and, but I'm trying to get out there and get informed of everything, so, yeah, I'll go ahead and move this one.
Second?
All right, motion by Dietrich, second by Nelson. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, the next request is also, it's the Improvement Regional Housing Fund. This request is in the amount of $23,322.
Right, and this is a matching fund to be used for a local match. Oh, yeah, from the letter of intent here. All right.
Yeah, and I'm on the board of this one as well. I mean, obviously with Simcoe and out there, but this is something that, improvement of houses that people can't necessarily afford it, like, emergencies instances and stuff like that. And, one of the things I saw, and I think I mentioned this in an earlier meeting, was it's just, they have a lot of people on the list, and they need the funds sitting there, but it's a lack of contractors to get a lot of these things done as well, so. And they try to rack and stack, by need base and everything like that, so it's a good program. So,
All right, I'll move it.
I'll second.
All right, motion by Bittinger, second by Dietrich. Any other further discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Motion passes 5-0.
The next request is a new request for this year. It's to the Les Hills Alliance. I believe it was funded, how many years ago, Heather?
I think 2020 was the last fiscal year.
And there has been no request since then, and so we did receive one this year. And that's in the amount of $2,000.
Matthew, what's their intention with the funding on this, do you know?
I think in the past, perhaps the county engineer was involved with some mitigation, if I'm thinking correctly, or maybe this was for a required council of government sort of thing, specific to grants involving, Loess Hills and tourism or erosion and such. But we haven't had any meetings this year, so I'm not totally sure on what the dues would pay for. We could certainly approve it and take it back out if there's any heartburn about it later.
Okay, that sounds, I think that sounds reasonable. It's not a huge amount.
Yeah, I was curious if Les Hills Alliance, I don't know if they're hooked in with the Les Hills Scenic Byway, or if that's a different group.
I think that's different.
Okay,
I'm pretty sure that's different.
okay,
I'm pretty sure.
no worries.
All right, I'll move it.
Second.
Motion by Bittinger, second by Nelson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes 5-0. Let me give you an update just real quick if I can interrupt here. Thank you, Mr. Chris McGowan, he just texted me just saying that They are intending to send over a letter of request for $25,000, and they will figure out what happened, where was the oversight, why that didn't get over to us. But he said just they do want to send in that request, so just and I'll put that, once we get that, I'll get that on the agenda for next week. So just FYI to the board, and so. Thank you to our many YouTube listeners. Thank you, Chris, for watching. Hoping to get some of that revenue, right, from those ad shares. Yeah, that's a joke out there for all the county employees and the public, yeah. All right, I know I'm bad, I know. Tina, you can shake your head, I know, it's just bad. I'm no Keith Raddick with the jokes, I get it. All right, let's keep moving on, all right? Keep it
Okay.
germane, let's keep rolling on. Yeah.
Okay, our next,
Yeah.
our final request for this would be from Iowa's West Coast in the amount of $5,000. And this has been funded in the past. It's an increase from 2,000 from last year.
All right. Yeah, come on forward. Yeah, we have someone here to speak for the Iowa's West Coast Initiative. So yeah, introduce yourself and go ahead.
Hi, my name is Karina Pedroza. I'm the Entrepreneurial Community Navigator with Iowa's West Coast Initiative. Thank you so much for your consideration. We did ask for an increase from last year. We are funded through our leadership board, so everybody on our board is asked to make a contribution, as well as our community partners. So we've asked everybody to make an increase. The increase in funding is going towards offering more programming for our entrepreneurs and our business owners. We service Woodbury County, so we get out into the rural communities and offer different types of programming. We have pitch competition in November called the Big Challenge. We are hosting a conference as well for small business owners. This year, hopefully, will be a yearly occurrence. And so we are doing more to get the entrepreneurs, the small business owners involved. We're starting mentorship programs as well. And so that's where the increase in funding comes from, or the request, sorry.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for being here.
It's been nice seeing the West Coast Initiative's signage with events like Made and Found and the Rural Route Ramble and things like that. So that's exactly the kind of stuff they should be doing, and a lot of entrepreneurs in those groups, so.
Yeah.
I'll move it.
Second?
All right, motion by Nelson, second by Carver. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Motion passes 5-0.
Okay,
All
the
right.
next item would be the medical examiner. And some of these entries are based on our historical data. I think last year when we started having the medical examiners, it was unknown how much it would cost. So if you look at the investigations line in fiscal year '25, we had budgeted $45,000. However, you can see that it's up to $83,000 already. So just looking at the amount of claims, there's 3 investigators that submit claims on a monthly basis. So $140,000 has been budgeted for those 3 medical examiners. And the rest, just based on the past history, we plugged in the amounts as seen. And I know you have the new items that you'll cover.
Right, yep. I have a packet I want to pass out to all the boards, so I'll move to receive.
Oh, second?
Motion by Bittinger, second by Nelson. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. This one for Michelle, and I have one for you, Matthew. I'll just put it in your mailbox here at the office. This is just some backup material. Supervisor Nelson and I met with one of our MEIs and Dr. Julie Briner just regarding about the transition of the county morgue. As we stated last year, the county morgue on the St. Luke's property is going away. They are reacquisition that property, and so we've been very, very thankful to have that partnership with them for many years, but we're having to look to the future. And just as we have found out, we're just one of 3 counties that still continues to have, in essence, a county morgue in Iowa. And so in the packet here, just when Supervisor Nelson and I met, this is just kind of an outline of what would be potentially required for a new county morgue, and looking at what would we need in a small building, a little office there. It's got some just some prices, things that we currently use in the current county morgue, But what would we need going forward? The county morgue current facility will be decommissioned at the end of this calendar year, so, with that, our going forward hits right in the middle of the fiscal year, so we have to have a plan. And so we are working towards that plan. And this is backup I just gave everyone, just lists kind of the, what Michelle has on the screen, some of our budget from last year, this year, and then just the requirements of what would a new morgue look like. And then I went and had one of our MEIs go look at a couple places with a couple of the pathologists to see if we had, if we had a transition to a new morgue, what are options out there in Siouxland. On the last 2 pages, you can see the first one, it was a lease. There's a place there on Pierce Street that we could lease that would work and be very economical. But I just found out this week that is going, they're not going to lease it, they're going to sell the property. The last page, there's a property that could work, that has everything that would be needed, ease of access for, pulling up for ambulances, security, good parking lot, all that, but that building's $499,000, and we don't have that type of money. And so what I'm working on, I've already contacted a couple other counties, and they utilize funeral homes and do 2080 agreements with funeral homes, in essence, to house the deceased, and then they contract out to have any autopsies done at the state coroner's office, and utilize funeral homes and their drivers and their vehicles to transport the deceased for the autopsies in Ankeny and bring them back. And so the counties help put local, money back into local economy, into local businesses. And so we are looking, I'm still reaching out. One county reached out to me, and got me their numbers, and other ones I'm waiting for those to get those back. And so we are working a plan. And Supervisor Nelson and I are working that and getting those numbers. And so I say all that to say, to plan for just this last 6 months of the next fiscal year, here on the budget, you'll see 2 new line items. One says contractual services, and the other one says rentals, and it says rentals, semicolon buildings. We have some unknown costs at this moment, and just like when Michelle, you said when we switched to MEIs, there was we took a shot at the budget, and of course, we're getting actualization of budget in reality. And so on here for contractual services, this is where we would contract out with local funeral homes and try to set up 2080 agreements for them to help us. Thank you, Supervisor Ung, for being on the phone call. Have a great night. Well, Matthew's has to drop off, so
Okay.
thank you, Matthew, for joining us. This contractual service is just a unknown, trying to project a cost if we have to contract out. And so last year, I believe, Supervisor Nelson, I think we had 145 deaths in the county. I think it was what happened. And so we're having to get some of those numbers to figure out, it'll be cheaper to potentially contract out with funeral homes. And like we talked about, it would be good to help us, not having to necessarily build another physical morgue potentially, but we may still have to. And so with that, that's why I put it in a line item for rentals for $75,000. We talked about, into the board, one of the preferred method would be if we could find a lease a space in the meantime, and not have the capital outlay. And then I know we talked about, I talked with Kenny about just potentially, and we're going to begin some conversations about what if we could use some of our own property that Woodbury County owns, Prairie Hills. If we had to build a small little, in essence, morgue, to have a cooler, have a little office, and autopsy space, what would that look like? And so I put this rental line in here just to give us some cushion, and we're going to keep looking for potentially a space we can lease. I've already spoken with Mike Montino, our Emergency Management Director, to find out if there's any grants or programs out there, anything regarding emergency management for coolers, any type of equipment for a morgue, just anything that could help us offset some of these costs that are unknown at the moment. And so that's that's kind of an increase there of $175,000 to our MEI examiner, and morgue budget there. So that's kind of a background. And so Supervisor Nelson and I will keep working on that. We'll bring the board updates about that, and we'll be talking to, with Kenny, our Building Services Director, just any ideas. And so we just want to try to plan for the future, knowing we don't have exact costs yet. So
Yeah,
go
my
ahead.
preference, would be that we send the autopsies to Des Moines, and we contract with local businesses to do this, then we don't own a building, we don't have all that overhead. I think what we'll have to find out is if funeral homes in the county have the space.
Right.
I mean, that's,
Right.
that's kind of our limiting factor on that. If they don't, then we might get back into a morgue type scenario where we either have to lease or buy or builds. But I think that, I think we'll be able to get an agreement
Yeah.
where we can
Right.
go to Des Moines and not have to own any other property. But
Yeah.
we're kind of working all angles just in case some don't pan out.
Right, right. We will also have to have storage for, there's, at the current existing morgue, there's a lot of files and
Yep.
specimens, stuff like that they've used, we have to keep those records. And so we'll be looking for options, storage. We still will have to have some type of storage option, so we'll have to see what we have in the current county space, or do we have to lease a storage space, and so, so I'm thankful to Supervisor Nelson, we've been beginning to work on this and get this going, and so, I'm thankful to St. Luke's for the heads up on that, they didn't spring this on us and at the end of the year, but we are working that. So that's what's in the budget here. So these are my best guess going into what the limited information I've got back from other counties. I've got other inquiries out that I'm waiting to get back, and so, but I don't know if you're in a discussion with you guys. I think this could, I think the contractual services could be enough. I think the building rentals, office building rental, I think that could be enough to cover us at least for 6 months or more. I think it'd be enough for a year, for a calendar year, but just what I would submit to put that in. So with that, I would, if we're in a discussion, I know it's kind of shooting in the dark, but I'd rather shoot kind of high, and then if we come in underneath that, we'll readjust our budget. So, but I would, if no other discussion or questions, I would move it.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Bittinger, second by Nelson. Any other discussion? All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes 4-0. All right, next up is from gaming, Meals on Wheels.
So on your gaming, last week I had a projection that was where we're at in fiscal year '25. Now, this projection on gaming, page 1, I think it's in your medical examiner part, is the projection for fiscal year '26. So with everything that has been allocated from gaming through fiscal year '25, the balance is estimated at $212,025. Last week, you received the certs request, and we were waiting on Meals on Wheels, so now we have received that. So that's been added to the items up for receipt from the board. And if these two items are both received, then the unallocated funds would be $663.317. And last year, we did use 300, I believe, well, let me get down here, 300,000 of that was used in an auditor's transfer. I believe that went to general supplemental.
So we have how much in gaming right now?
Right now, we have like 212 unallocated. But then when we look at what
Thousand.
we're to, what did I say, sorry?
212.
212,000, yes.
I just make sure it wasn't dollars.
Okay, sorry, yes.
Or
It's not
pennies.
million either, so.
Okay, okay. Yeah, 212 million, I would take that. That would be nice.
So, but after we receive just an estimate on what we would receive from the gaming funds, we should have 663 at the end of
Because that was
fiscal
my
year
next question. Are we
26.
talking dollars or hundreds of thousands? So
Thousand.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
And this request is for 12,760, is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And the gaming funds are specifically to be used for,
Those can be used to transfer to other funds, so they're not as restricted as the lost funds. So
Okay.
this is something that we can use to help with some of the levies in the other funds.
okay. I move to receive.
Second.
All right, motion by Nelson, second by Dietrich. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion passes 4-0. All right, on to the debt service fund. This is the chart. You guys go to debt service.
Okay, so I provided you with a couple of resources. The first on page 2 is going to show all of the debt currently, including the CIP for 2025 and the repayment schedule. Those amounts on this include principal and interest payments for each fiscal year involved. So you can see where we're at and where we're going with all of the obligated debt. The newest one is the last one here, 1.2 million for the CIP 2025. And the next few pages are the debt schedules that will show the principal and interest for each individual loan with the highlights for the fiscal year 26 amounts. Any questions or anything in detail that you want to look at on those forms?
I just love some of those interest rates, 0.84% interest, 1.99%, wow. Those were the days.
So page 7 is going to show the fiscal year 26 amounts for your totals, which is $2,944,940. And that would be levied from the debt service levy. This would be, I believe this item is the principal only, I apologize, that's the principal only. And then we go to the next page, and that's going to show you the interest for each of those. The interest is $407,804. And that would be on your page 8. And then we have the additional rent line items, and which is the 400,000 obligation to the LEC lease. So you can see the fiscal year 26 amount for the LEC. That will include the principal, interest, and the additional rent for the LEC authority.
And the rent is what we call the maintenance fund
Yeah.
contribution.
Yeah, but-
400,000 a
Right.
Yep,
year.
correct.
Yes,
For Dave and Kent, so on that LEC lease, so it's 3.6 million and change that we have to pay on for the bond payment. And then there's 400,000 that we pay twice, so 200,000 twice a year for a total of 400,000, and that goes into a maintenance fund that the LEC controls, and that is specifically to use only on the building, you know, replacement of key fixture items, upgrades, anything that would, you know, the point of it was to have longevity of that building, so that if this board was too tight-lipped with the money and didn't want to put money into fixing things out there, that they had a fund to do that. So that's what that is for. So I think there's a, short million in there now? Somewhere, yeah, somewhere in
1.2,
there, but,
yeah.
so.
I
But then once
got
it gets to a certain level, I don't know if it's 6.8, 8 million, 8 million?
It's 8 million.
8 million.
It's 8 million.
So once it gets to 8 million, then we stop paying that, and then that money, there's a split. But then if it ever dips back below that, then we replenish it. So, and that was all based off of a bunch of planning and homework that we had done as far as life expectancies of a lot of the stuff in there, as far as what it was gonna cost to either do maintenance or replace them. So,
You answered my question. I was about to ask that.
yep.
Good evening.
Good evening, go ahead.
Tina
Tina.
Bertrand, Woodbury County Treasurer. Just to add to what Supervisor Nelson was saying, when we were doing the budget hearing for the Treasurer's Office, we had an investment, interest on investment, and in some of that paperwork, I did break out. The LEC maintenance reserves was on there, so you take a look at what that fund is. We do have those segregated in their own account, and they're earning interest
Yeah.
on it as well. So, I mean, again, those are things that, you know, we will keep it segregated, so if the money's needed for any reason, it's there.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Tina.
I thought you were gonna come up here and solicit us for another sinking repair fund for other county buildings, like the LEC has, but we'll save that for another time.
That'll be a separate meeting, probably with our new finance director, and we can start talking about how we want to do some of that.
And I'll just ask the question, because, I mean, I know there is the separate building funds that, for, you know, Kenny asked for the law enforcement center. And this one, obviously, is separate of that for like major type stuff. It's not just, you know, just normal upkeep. It's like, well, like the building across the street, it would have been to help fix and save. So it's, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that we have to have a discussion on, is that it hasn't been clear for the Board of Supervisors or the authority of how do you deem those expenditures, right? Like, do we set a cap that anything over a $10,000 expenditure is all the authority, or a split, or, you know, whatever the case may be? And so, obviously, we've been a little busy with all the other stuff going on out there, but that's a discussion that we're gonna have to have at some point, and it's gonna be kind of a moving target, because, I mean, you just don't know how stuff's gonna come up. I don't think that there's a way that you could say, you know, this item is the authority and this item's the county. I think it's gonna have to be some sort of a monetary amount of size, and then if it's over that, you end up doing a split or something like that,
Right.
because I mean, you can't humanly think about all the stuff that's in there that's gonna need replaced, so, that's my opinion anyway.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so moving through the debt, on page 11, you'll see the revenue for the debt service. And that will be $300,000 from secondary roads, which was the agreement for the gravel project. And the remaining for the gravel project is paid through TIF, which is $786,850. We have also revenue from District Health for rent from their facility of $80,000, and that's a routine yearly amount. And so the amount to levy would be $6,203,755 if there were no more movement, such as from lost or other options to pay down the debt service area.
And I believe, Michelle, remind me, and Mark, I think last year, aren't we only at like, is it 12 or 13% of our debt capacity? I thought
Something like that.
we're real low, which is good. I mean, it's a good thing. I mean, I think for the public to understand that we're not trying to maximize our debt capability. And so, even with the LEC and everything in debt services, we're good. And I think that's a priority of the board, not to load us with debt,
Yep.
but to, yeah, keep that low and manageable and keep working our way out of debt, yeah. Okay. Any other questions? All right, I will move to receive.
Second?
Motion by Bittinger, second by Nelson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. And then lastly is just miscellaneous review, all funds.
Okay, so for the miscellaneous review, there's one page that I included in your material, and that's the what-if scenario that we were to hold the levy constant, meaning the same as it was last year. If you can see the form, the highlighted areas are the areas that there's some control of. So if we just look at the top, general basic is limited by House File 718. So we can receive $21,615,700. Currently, we have an excess of over $3 million in expenses compared to our revenues, if it is as is today. The general supplemental, if we were to levy the same as last year, we would receive $13,127,523. The debt service, as we just went through, $6,203,755. There's a little flexibility there if you choose to move money from lost to make that levy lower. And that could shift that levy to the general supplemental or the rural supplemental and maintain the constant levy rate. The rural basic is where we are limited, and the levy on that will be less than it was last year. So the maximum money receipted in would be $3,827,629. And an item that we have not used before is the rural supplemental. So the rural supplemental, we can allocate IPERS and FICA from any employees paid out of the rural basic. And we can use that to offset the rural basic where we are. So I just wanted to show you a couple of things, because I believe next Tuesday is the 4th. And we have to have our maximum amounts uploaded and prepared for the auditor mailing on March 5th. So the maximum amount let me see, I don't know if I have that open just yet.
So the maximum increase in dollars for rural basic is $87,370. Is that right? The maximum, sorry, I know you're pulling that up. So the new money, the max that we can get for rural basic for next year is $87,370.
No, that's the difference, that you're looking at the difference.
Oh, how much we can grow.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
yes,
that's, so,
yes.
Right, it's how much we can grow, right?
so I just want to point this out, the fallacy of this thing, right? So we can grow the rural basic budget, $87,370, which rural basic pretty much pays for our secondary roads. We have, I believe we have 3 motor graders in every district, which there's 4, so that's 12. It's $4.2 million worth of motor graders. And then we've got 4 dump trucks at every district at probably $200,000 apiece.
Yeah.
16 dump trucks. I live out there. I just don't know how we're gonna afford anything. I mean,
Right.
that we'll eat that in repairs.
Oh, right, correct.
We could have repairs with what labor rates and parts are doing. Anyway, so
Right.
that's neither here, it's appalling.
So if you look at your screens and you see at the bottom, this is prior year is fiscal year 25 budget. So fiscal year 25, we have a expense deficit of $1.7 million. Where we sit right now, we have a deficit of $3.6 million in the general basic fund.
Right, yeah.
So we need to, determine if where we're gonna look in the other funds. So if we look at the general supplemental, This is without any tax revenue. Last year, we actually, whereas Dennis would say to the good, 711,534. If we were to look at the maximum scenario for the general supplemental, we would request 14.556 million for the maximum scenario. And if we look at this 14.556831 is what I've plugged in here. And I've went through this similar, left the debt service as is without anything paid out or lost. Rural basic and general basic remain the same because we're limited on that levy.
Right.
Rural supplemental, I've looked at the employees to determine how much FICA and IPERS those employees paid out a rural basic calculate to, which is 218,428. So the maximum scenario that I can come up with, and I've looked at this time and time again, the new levy at the maximum rate for countywide would be 7.36359, which is an increase of 0.25241 per $1,000. And the rural would be 9.86418, or an increase of 0.34010. So if your desire is to plug in the maximum based on the requests we have today, these are the numbers that I can see in that area. And as we've said before, the maximum, we have to have this notice out.
Correct.
Or we will be held to a penalty, which is going to put us in worse shape. So if we were to put this as the maximum on our letters and maybe put out some press releases to explain, you know, this is the maximum and we're still working on the budget, you can still lower it, as we always have been able to still lower it until we adopt that budget, which will be in early April. So
plugging in these maxes, so the 736 countywide and the 986 rural, that balances the 3 million?
no, this will balance the general supplemental,
Yeah.
but we cannot ask for, you know, more than what we have.
Yeah. So regardless, there'll be cuts then. I mean, that's,
Well, I can check to see if I can increase that number, and then we move that to general basic but that will increase it. So if you want to see different scenarios, I can plug any number you want in right here, and it's going to tell us the new rate.
Right. I mean, one thing we've done in the past, I know Michelle and I were talking this morning, I mean, we've moved money over from gaming and lost into debt service to lower that levy. We've done that before. I mean, we could move money, you can move 400,000 or 500,000 just to help lower that, and then allows us to go up higher in other places. But to answer your question, overall, it does look like there will have to be cuts. They'll have to, I mean,
yeah, and you can do that with loss to make this year look good, but then that still doesn't help you for
right.
next year, because
Right.
it's still that the budget's too big, essentially.
Right.
is,
Well,
you know,
because it still has to creep down to the 350 levels, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, per House File 718. So regardless, it's going to go down. It's going to. I mean, they'll force us to go down.
yeah.
And then the rural basic. So I mean, it'll go down. You know, down to, I forget what's the rural basic max level. What's
2.36 is the max.
That's and that's in House File 718, right? That's the max. Is that, I forget what it's.
2.365.
2.36559, that is
That's
the
their-
max for Woodbury, and in order
Yeah.
for us to use rural supplemental, we need to be at the max for our county.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, for our mailer, I think, Michelle, to answer your question, I think it's the board's answer. It's been our answer from the beginning. Yeah, we want to put out the max. So
Yep.
we can always come down. You know, that's why I made the statement at the beginning of it. We want to be clear. But do you
And
think?
the CIPs aren't reflected in this debt service at all.
The fiscal year 25 CIP is the only amount that is going to be
Right.
reflected in fiscal year 26. Any new CIPs
Oh,
for
we mean
that
for
3 point,
27.
will be in 27. So
27.
yes, this is, the debt service will not change. That's
Right.
one thing I can tell you, is that one
Right.
is, unless you pay it down with lost.
So that's something we probably need to answer tonight. I mean, we would, if we made that decision next week, would that be too close for your deadline?
No, I mean, ultimately what I need, and we can have this on next week, because what I have to do is basically fill in the numbers that are on this spreadsheet.
Okay.
And that's a simple enough thing to change the grand total. But if you know, if you're increasing things like payroll, where we have to calculate what the difference is between now, and an increase in payroll, then that's gonna take a little bit of time to come up with the totals. So if we're at a board meeting on the 4th at 4:30 and there's increases being made, and it's 4:30 in the afternoon, and it's, the next day is when I'm required to pull that and have that posted on the Department of Management site, that's tight.
Right.
Do we need to call like a special meeting then to get it down a little
Potentially.
quicker?
Yeah, potentially, just to make sure to get.
I'm fine plugging in the max, I just want you to have
Yeah.
enough time to get your stuff done, so.
If you think this number is going to change, that you're gonna ask us to calculate something different and more, then yeah, we need to.
My
Find out
question I
what
have
that
is, I
is.
know we haven't finished 2 of our union negotiations. That's the only,
Have we plugged anything in for those?
Only what I've been told, which is
yeah.
probably not what's gonna happen.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. No, I mean, I think we need to plug the max in, but it wouldn't be bad if we called a special session, even like would Monday, if we called a special session on Monday just to talk through this.
If you wanna privately talk to me and give me some direction on what you want me to work up, I can
Sure.
have the numbers prepared.
Okay.
And then that can be approved or denied, but ultimately, you guys have to approve what this maximum
Right.
amount's going to be. I can work the figures if you wanna just give me direction
Okay.
on what you want me to change and where.
Okay. All right. Well, I think the max, what you've put in needs to be, even though it's an increase at 0.25 and 0.34. Like I've said before, it's just, it's the max, not what we're gonna end at. But we do wanna have that in there. So, I don't know what you guys think about that.
Can you scroll down a little bit, Michelle, on that, please? Is that,
Yes, I
Alright,
guess I do
so-
have a section there also, the levy per 100,000,
That's-
that box.
yeah, that's what I was
That
looking
is
at, but
what,
then-
per $100,000 of expenses, this is the increase in each of the levies. So your countywide tax base is gonna affect everyone, your debt service will affect everyone, and your rural will affect the rural areas. And
Okay,
these
and-
numbers, these numbers here are the total valuation for those areas that's used to calculate the taxes.
All right, was there anything that shows, and just for my knowledge or whatever, like with the general supplemental and the rural supplemental, is there anything that shows that with the kind of the same, the per 100,000 or anything, or?
I can't hear
So
very
that,
down at this end.
yeah, so is there anything that shows like the general supplemental or the rural supplemental, kind of like that at the bottom? The levy per 100,000?
Okay, so the rural supplemental and the rural basic are both calculated with the rural tax base? Is that what you're asking?
Well, so I
And
mean, they're separate of the general basic and the rural basic were correct, the supplementals are. So
This,
I'm just looking to see, like, so you have the levy per 100,000 on the county-wide tax base, the debt service tax base, and the rural tax base at the bottom, but I mean.
yep. Your rural supplemental is gonna fit with the rural tax base. It'll be
Okay.
exactly the same. And your general basic and your general supplemental will be in the countywide tax base amount.
So with this worst case one you're showing us on the screen here with the increase, and just there again, I'm learning as I go here, but with the 0.13500 on the rural supplemental and the 2.57065 on the general supplemental, that one isn't shown here at the bottom, right, with that added in? It is, or, because I mean, it's the same as the one I have here, but this one isn't the same as the one you're showing on the screen.
Right, the one that you're seeing in paper is if we were to have the same tax rate as we had last year. So
Okay,
you'll see
yep.
that the total amount that we would receive in general supplemental and rural supplemental is lower. So we wouldn't have as much money, which means
Yeah.
that we'd have, we already have 3 million more in expenses on general basic. With these numbers on your screens, we would net zero, so we'd have the same amount of expenses as we have revenue
Yeah.
for
yep.
those funds.
Yep. So I guess this, my question was trying to see that if we went to this, we're gonna show people the worst case, but I guess I was trying to see that here on the levy per 100,000 with that, the worst case added on. That's what I was trying to see, I guess. Does that make sense or not, or?
The worst case is gonna be what's on your screen, unless, and I need to look into this, potentially, if we were to receive, be able to receive more in general supplemental to move to general basic, but I don't know, I have to look into that further.
I think what he's saying, Michelle, if you scroll down a little bit, is that on the screen is worst case scenario, but the levy per 100,000 for those three funds are the same as what's on the sheet.
That's if you were to increase for $100,000, it's gonna be the same. It's the same amount per $100,000.
I know, but,
So-
okay, but you said that on the sheet, this levy per 100,000 is leaving the rate the same,
Right.
and you're saying this levy per 100,000 is the max ask, but they're both the same.
But you're receiving more money, so you're taking that amount times a higher factor, so. So it's $100,000 divided by 1,000. Or times 1,000 divided by your valuation. The valuation number doesn't change, so your $100,000 tax levy rate is gonna stay the same regardless of the amount that you're receiving. Your levy, but your tax rate is increasing, which means we'll receive more revenue. But if you were just to look at $100,000 period, the calculation is based on the valuation, and the valuation remains constant. So it's the $100,000 divided by 1,000, or times 1,000 divided by the valuation. So if you can see the formula up there. So that's why it's the same.
Yeah.
Does that make sense, or we can talk later if you want?
We can talk later.
I see where you're going, yeah, it's,
Yeah, I'm confused too, Dave, so
It doesn't
I-
present.
I'm
to
tracking
me
you,
that it's
Michelle.
an-
I'm tracking you, yeah.
Yeah.
I get it.
Well, what I'm just trying to figure out is why, if the rural levy is 9.52, if we leave it the same, or if it's 9.86 with the max, then how is it still 0.061? That does, like, it should be higher for 9.86 than it is 9.52, but it's not, so that's where I'm confused.
What I,
Do you know how to explain it any different?
we can talk later. That's fine. That way, for lack of.
Yeah, we can talk, talk offline, yeah.
Okay.
It's correct, Michelle's saying it's correct, right, this is a static regard, yeah, you said it, it's regardless, but we can, it's this one, we'll talk offline about it, it's just we put the max, I'd say we put the max in, that's what I would say
Yeah.
to the board, yeah, we just need to put the max in, Michelle, what you have on the screen,
Yep.
and then I'll get with you,
I think I know where the disconnect is. I think that what you're thinking is I'm saying if you have a $100,000 house, this is how much you're going to pay, and that's not what I'm saying. What I'm trying to say is if we want $100,000 for expenses, it's gonna increase the levy by the amount here. It's not, if I can do another calculation that will tell you if I had a $100,000 house before and after, this is what our numbers, and yes, that would increase. And if we're talking about a house that's valued taxable value is $100,000. But I'm talking about us to receive $100,000, how is that gonna affect the levy? So maybe it's a little backwards than normally you hear, and maybe my, yeah.
No, yeah, okay, you're doing good. It's all right. Don't worry. Next year, Ryan will have this. It's going to be on his. Yeah. That's right.
Attaboy, Ryan.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'll just confuse you in different ways.
Oh, boy. We might have to have an employee review.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Dan.
Yeah.
I'd move to receive, with the max tax asking, and somebody's gonna have to get us a gold chainsaw, I think.
Yeah. I'll second that. Michelle, do we need this motion, like specific numbers, or is it, or does that satisfy what we have here? I mean, do you need?
You're receiving this document and having this be what we are gonna put out on the 5th? Or just receiving the document and then we'll discuss it further?
Yeah, let's receive it. Well, with these max numbers, then we'll discuss it further even more, yeah.
Okay.
Is that clear? Okay.
What I'm hearing is that you've moved to receive this document into the record, so this document will be posted with the minutes as received with the maximum amounts.
Yep.
And
Correct.
then we'll have a future meeting to determine the actual tax rate and amounts that you want posted on the auditor's notice.
Correct. Yeah, correct. Okay. All right. All right, any further discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion passes 4-0. All right. Anything else regarding the budget? Does anyone have anything that they'd like to give to the county regarding money? This is a call.
We accept donations.
PayPal, Venmo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just kidding. I better stop. Let's keep it professional. All right, with that, let's go on to number 8, reports on committee meetings. If anybody has any committee meeting reports.
All right, yeah, we had I went to a community action meeting, and they were going through a board evaluation for Jean Logan, and she scored extremely high with that meeting. Also, they were talking about possibly a new building in the future, and the discussion of the lease of this building that they have now. I guess that's going to be going on for the next 5 years for their budget. And then Dave Dietrich and we attended the zoning meeting with, that took place on Monday night. And we had a guest speaker named Stephen Curtis. He has 32 years experience with he speaks about nuclear power plants, recycling spent fuels, and about the safety and the time frame of if we had a nuclear facility in Woodbury County. And if we started now, it would take approximately 10 years to even complete. So do you have anything you wanted to add to that? Dave?
And talking to Dan, obviously at that as well, I mean, obviously the zoning is there to look at the ordinances and, the planning, not to make the decisions on what we're going to do, and that's our decisions to be made and, as well, so. And Dan.
Yeah, just brief, yeah, just.
Just to add to the supervisor's statements, zoning commission, of course, is looking into the matter. Stephen Curtis provided a really fascinating overview last night to kind of bring folks up to speed on the industry and what technologies are available. I had brought up kind of in the staff scenario that we have some infrastructure as far as the zoning ordinance, section 3.03.3 basically makes the reference to electrical energy generation, as well as chemical and gas bulk storage. And so we have the ability to actually run that through a conditional use procedure.
Yep.
So there's kind of a base structure there. The zoning commission basically informally, I know Commissioner Bride mentioned kind of the conditional use process, but they'll reconvene probably next month and have something more formal as far as a statement likely to come from the commission as far as the base infrastructure, but they'll definitely continue to engage the public. We were very encouraged last night that more folks had shown up because I think we were on between the Board of Adjustment and Zoning Commission, we were about on the 7th or 8th meeting, the 3rd public hearing for the commission, and last night there was a bit more as far as engagement there and the folks speaking on it, so we were definitely encouraged there. So
Okay. Thank you, Dan. Yeah. All right. Only means I had, that was on Friday. I know Supervisor Nelson and I and Dan Priestley spoke with Stephen Curtis about the nuclear options, the small fast reactors, the light reactors. And so it was very encouraging to hear some of the technology and some of the funding, and that also Governor Reynolds is open up to that, and the state. And so I think there's some good possibilities for Woodbury County. We all know that we need energy, and that's a huge limiting factor in growth for industries here in Woodbury County. We can't go into all the details, but we know until we get that, there's going to be some huge issues of building the industry here. And so I think that was very encouraging to hear some of the reports from Mr. Curtis about the safety and some of the misnomers that's out there about clean and safe nuclear energy. We know that wind and solar can't provide what we need. Sorry, Mid-America, it's not going to happen. And so I'm hoping that, we can, as this board, we can plan for the future, right? We may not be on the board when some of this stuff gets online, but if we can get that energy going, that'll help provide for our citizens and help reduce energy costs. But I had that, so it was a great meeting. Thank you, Dan, for setting that up, our planning and zoning director. And then I had our SHIP
I
meeting.
was just gonna throw in there on your same thing was that it was interesting to note that Stephen Curtis thought that there's a potential energy crisis in the United States,
thank you. Yes,
a
good point.
shortfall
Yeah.
of industrial energy because there's so much demand in the way of these data centers, Bitcoin mines. So much of what we're doing in our day-to-day lives is moving digital, and it requires electricity that he does not think that nationwide that there's a clear pathway to actually generate all the power that the entire country is going to need. And so he sees the feds are going to, he actually thinks that there could be a disaster declaration. Was that what he used, or a national emergency?
Emergency declaration.
Yeah, an emergency declaration from the feds at some point to streamline, fast track any sort of energy production, because there's just, especially of industrial sized power, there's just not enough. So I just wanted to add that onto your deal there. I had no idea.
Right,
So,
and that's a good point. Something else you pointed was how our military, we've had nuclear subs and you had carriers running for years on micro nuclear generators, a little small, and then he said how a lot of the bases want to go fully self-sufficient with these small, light, fast reactors that are using spent fuel to make energy. So it's really cool technology, and I think there's something from a national interest, and even our own home base, Woodbury County. Let's take care of Woodbury County with energy and provide for our businesses and homes and families, and so.
If I can add a little bit
Yeah,
to
sure,
it, too,
go
it's just, it's interesting though, too, how much, he calls it slightly used nuclear fuel
Yeah.
that Iowa has alone, and how many years of, we could just be basically almost self-sufficient, but I mean, that could be used in these
Correct.
fast reactors.
Yeah, so yeah.
if I may, I just want to point out that for anybody that missed last night's meeting, the YouTube video
Okay. Oh,
is
thank
up
you.
online under the Zoning Commission Committee page. It's well worth a watch.
Okay.
Steve Curtis is actually on video, kind of describing the scope of the industry and much of what you're
Okay.
touching on here.
Perfect, thank you. Thank you, Dan. Yeah, exciting times, so we hope
Yeah.
it'll help us out. My other report, I just have a SHIP meeting, Siouxland Human Investment Partnership. They're just going through the audit, had a good audit, and they do well. They're handling the money, and so that's all that I have to report for that. So, you good? Anything, you have anything?
we had an We had an LEC meeting this afternoon at 2:00, and it was pretty lively. So the Baker Group's contract was it's been month to month, and so since we're at the end of the month, we had discussions about what we're gonna do next month and going forward, and I'd been trying since November to move to an hourly rate. I had thrown out, a motion to cap the wages at 24,000, which would be about a 25% decrease of what it had been, and I did not get a second, and ultimately they voted to keep it at a $32,000 cap. Was very disappointed in that. I thought I substantiated my baseline for that pretty clear. There was really nothing that substantiated that, the support for a higher cap on the other side. You know, and then, but they don't see what we see up here when we look through these numbers. And so, we're in a very tight budget here, and no fault of our own, it's just the way it is. But, we're gonna have to have a resolution for a 28E sometime in the next week or two to fund the LEC authority for the legal expenses, the owner's rep expenses, those sort of things. And I would like to see this board stick to what we feel is adequate. Remember the golden rule, the one with the gold makes the rules, and we are the ones with the gold. And so I would like us to be frugal with the money and really think critically about what we're giving and how it's going to be spent, because I think every dollar is going to matter. So we are going to have another meeting in 2 weeks. We gave an update about the issues with the heating that the building suffered last week during the cold. Some could call it extreme cold. That was kind of normal cold for this time of year. We had spaces in the county attorney's spaces that were 46 degrees. And we had to really play with the system in order to get the heat up. And so we've got issues. And it's at no expense to us. It's nothing we've done wrong. It's part of the design. It's part of construction. We sent a letter out to the parties last week, and the big one would be in Troba, and we have not heard a peep out of them. And I think that just really says it all right there. We've got professionals that they have no business having to work in that kind of an environment, and these people, they should have sent a plane and had somebody on the ground looking through this. So it's really disappointing how little they seem to care about this project. And so, our people, whether that was our building services staff, Baker Group, Suter, they were out there plugging away as hard as they can. And our engineer, Corey, they should not have to do that. They should not. That's not our problem. And so, thankful for those people, but anyway. The warmer temps are a good thing because we're going to avoid situations like that. But the bad thing is that we can't replicate that problem without the cold temperatures. And so we can continue to look at what needs to be fixed, but most likely we're not going to have a cold snap like that. I mean, I've looked at the 2-week forecast. We're going to barely dip into the 20s at night. So the good news for employees out there, we're likely not going to have that problem. The bad news is what's waiting for us next year. Right. And that's what's going to be tough, and we're going to have to be careful that we do not surrender away any of our rights or those damages, because I think that this problem will persist into next year, and they're going to have to deal with it next year.
Correct, yeah.
So that's all I have to report. Thank you.
Well, I'll just say regarding the request today in the meeting, I think the board does stand with you, and we've talked, about the financing of the Baker Group at certain levels. I agree with you. The board should stand together on that, and we have to make tough financial decisions now. So, with that, let me move on to any citizen concerns.
Doyle Turner, 2738 200th Street, Mobile. I would just kind of like to piggyback off of Mark's report. I was at that meeting, and I know I've come up here a lot of times, and I preach mitigate damages. And when the LEC attorney is sitting there telling the board, don't worry about spending the money, we'll get it back, that is prime evidence for the other side. I promise you they're watching these meetings. I promise you they will bring this up. And I promise you those attorneys' words will be used against us. And it's really concerning to me that we are taking this attitude, because here's what it boils down to. Number one, if we don't mitigate the damages for those insurance companies that we're hoping that are eventually going to pay this, we don't mitigate the damages for the people of Woodbury County. It's really that simple. And the fact that, we have a really strange situation going on with the board where the only full-time employee out here from Baker Group happens to be the chairman's son, the chairman of the LEC's son. And the strange thing is we have an attorney who represents Baker Group and the LEC. Well, she doesn't seem to see a conflict of interest in her own actions. And amazingly, she doesn't see a conflict of interest for the chairman and his son. We need to get this corruption under control because it's going to be used against us in a courtroom. And I've said this before, we're going to have to figure out, are we going to pay the corruption and forego the court case? Because worst case scenario, we pay for the corruption and we pay for a court case that we eventually lose. And I'm telling you, I've been an expert for lawyers. I have done this kind of work negotiating with lawyers to give them advice on things like this. The way this case is going, if you aren't going to clean this up, then forget the case. Because the worst case scenario is to spend the $30,000, $40,000 a month we're spending on attorneys, plus spend the $30,000, $32,000 that they're saying that we have to spend for Baker Group. At some point, it's just cheaper to forget the money that you're trying to get back and stop the bleeding, because that's what's going on. So I would really suggest we have an opportunity. Now is the time. We've talked about it before, and we said we were going to wait till we were occupying the building. Now is the time to go back and do what the Iowa Auditor's Office suggested. Go back, renegotiate that 2080 agreement, renegotiate the lease agreement, and tell them we are not going to just spend unlimited amount of money for the chairman's son. Because that's really what's going on here, guys. I mean, everybody in the public knows this, and it's given our county a real black eye when it's really unfair because you haven't had any control over this situation. You've been strong-armed into this situation, but now where they need the money in order to keep going, now you have a chance to take advantage of that and get this thing turned around so that it's right. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? All right. Hearing none. Any board concerns? I know that coming up at 6, we have our assessors meeting, so really, I just need one other, I'll be there, need one other supervisor there. I don't know, were you planning on
Has
being
Camp been before?
there? I don't.
A conference board meeting?
The
Have you?
conference board meeting for the assessors, have you been? No.
I have not. What date is that?
That's tonight.
That's 6.
Tonight. That's tonight at 6.
Okay, I can join.
Okay.
It won't take long.
Yeah, it won't take long. I just need,
That'd be good.
we just don't need a quorum. We don't need,
Yep.
we don't need a quorum. We just need 2, so, okay. All right, there's that.
Try to work the new guys in.
Correct. Yep. All right, anything else for the good of the cause?